since the lockdown started, so they will be taking a while to catch up for those registrations, but that is at least now underway.
Bob, a question to you. What's the feeling amongst people about next week when things start to open, especially the caravan sites, for instance, and the pressures it's going to put on the local shops, supermarkets in particular, beaches, etc. Do we know what precautions the caravan sites are taking, or holiday places?
Certainly, I think it would be fair to say there's a fair bit of nervousness at the moment. The campsites are all going to be attempting to keep the social distancing issues in place, and they've been advised that they need to do that. But I think we're all expecting there will be a significant number of people coming to this area, and I think everyone just needs to be a bit careful over the next couple of weeks to see how it all starts to bed in. I think we all need to just watch out for the overcrowding that seems to have happened in some of the other areas of the country, and we just need to avoid it here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Bob? No? Okay. Footpaths. Who's going to give the footpaths report? Cynthia's on footpaths, isn't she? Is not here. Who else is on footpaths, Owen?
David is on footpaths.
David?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really walked about much over the last month, so I can't really give you too much of a opinion on that, I'm afraid.
That's okay. Yeah, you're busy. We recognise that, David. Busy time of the year for you. Just an update from the things I was involved with. The gates have been put in now for Richard Mills Roberts, i.e. the redirection of the footpath, and we've put the marker posts in for the Battleborough Lane permitted path. If you remember, we had to put new signs up and posts marked white to stop people straying off that path over the farmer's land up to the knolls. So that's been done. I checked the gate down in Middle Street, yeah, and that's been now unlocked, so pedestrians can gain access. The gate that leads into the field opposite the tennis club, that seems to be okay. It was a bit tight, but it seems fine. You just gotta, it won't automatically close. You've got to give it a bit of a shove, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I suppose the next thing we've got to do is a couple of things. David and I need to talk about the Sally Wingate's gate. She's got two areas she wants stoned, and we've got to talk about Karen's footpath across the Horsefield, i.e. putting some liner and brick down there. But I haven't spoken to David as yet, but we have spoken to say that we need to speak, for want of a better word. So that's as far as I've got. Oh, and we've had the yeah, there are a couple of things that come out of it. We've had the paths trimmed from the back of the church up to the knoll. When the guy did the gates, he did that at the same time, so that was another hit out of the way. But Peter Osborne sent me an email to say that Mike Diamond was unfortunately ill. He'd had a stroke. He's not in a good way, and of course won't therefore be able to clear the pathway round the back of the tanks and on towards the house at the far end where I've forgotten their name now, but that needs to be something that we look in, because Somerset County Council don't do vegetation trimming now, and we may well have to look at that doing it ourselves in the light that Mike won't be able to do it. Brian?
I'm not sure where you mean. Could you describe it?
It runs from the back of the tanks, and it's where
it runs to Windy Ridge.
Windy Ridge. That's right.
Right.
Thank you, David.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It notoriously gets overgrown, and Mike does it just about at the end of the season and redeems himself. But it's not going to be done this year because he's so poorly. So we may need to get a contractor in to do that. That's footpaths. Yeah.
I have a question.
Somebody's got a question?
Bob's got a question, I think. He's on mute.
Yeah, I thought Malcolm had come in, but all I was going to ask was, I think we had some correspondence following on from the work that we did on Battleborough Lane, where there were some queries raised about permissive paths and non-permissive paths. I mean, I certainly read the letter that was made, and my understanding is certainly that the path that runs between the two ends of Battleborough Lane is a permissive path. The actual footpath, which is the AX 811, runs through the farmyard of Battleborough Lane and then heads up the hill and comes out at Coombe-side. So I think the correspondence we were sent, I understand they looked it up on a map, but that's I don't think actually is what's on the ground in terms of what our paths are. And certainly it was only through the permission of the farmer that we were able to connect up the two ends of Battleborough Lane with the footpath across the bottom of that field. So I'm sure that is permissive. I'm sure county could confirm that if we need them to, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, I said to Owen that I would speak to Chris East to determine, as you say, one, we've got a permissive path, and two, we've got if you like, a normal path, for want of a better word, and then we'll put the appropriate signs on those posts. Okay. That's footpaths as far as I can see.
Malcolm's got a question.
Okay.
All right, Malcolm.
Yes, the recent intrusion of the cattle onto the railway track, was this through a gateway or was it through a footpath?
Could everyone hear that?
Question? No.
Malcolm was asking about whether the recent intrusion of cattle on the railway line was through a gateway or through the footpath, but it was actually on the footpath. But it is Burnham without footpath, but obviously it wasn't the greatest incident.
I can't comment. Is there anything that we need to do then, Owen, or is it Burnham without problem?
But is it Burnham without? And certainly, I think they've acknowledged that. I think, as far as I'm aware. So
it seems like Network Rail are actually getting on and sorting something, which is good. But it's a shame it needs an issue like this to bring it to their attention, because it was lack of maintenance.
Thank you.
No, Burnham without definitely taking it on board.
Okay, thank you. Okay, highways, is that Malcolm again?
It is, yeah.
I've had nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Yeah, who did the green car park and toilet block this month?
John.
I did.
John?
I did. I had a look at the phone box, which is not being used by the shop. It's all right, but it's on temp and rather disused. So that.
Sorry, John. Yes, speak up a bit.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
It sounds like you're in a telephone box, actually.
Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it then. Just leave it. If you can't hear me, there's no point in continuing.
Don't think. Who can hear John? I can't hear a word.
I can just about hear him.
Yeah.
Not very well.
Either yes or no, I'll carry on or not, as the case may be.
I think carry on, John, because I can hear you and Colin.
You can recall it.
Yeah.
The phone box is not being used by the shop, but it's evident it is rather neglected inside. The village green was not being used, but the grass was tidy. The grass in front of the toilet block has not been cut and looks very unkempt. As you go on to the green, the boundary fence is now very weathered and probably needs repainting. The bushes at the entrance to the green need cutting back on both sides, on the car park side and on the side of the green. On the left-hand side, the new chain link fence which is installed is unkempt underneath, and the weeds are growing and they're not either being trimmed back or weed killed. So something needs to be done about that. There is a major problem or ongoing problem of bamboo shoots coming out of Mr. Slocum's grounds, and they're now tracking onto the green. They're up to the metal path along the green. They will soon be underneath it. So I don't know what we're going to do about it. Bamboo can be controlled, but it's very much the responsibility of the landowner. So that will have to be addressed. The picnic benches are very tatty and need to be repainted. I had a look at the toilet block, and the only thing there is that the dryer in the tent is not working. And that was all.
After I spoke to John a few days ago, and I've had a conversation with Jason, and he has taken on board some of the points that John's raised there. One of the things he wants to do is to use some spray on the left-hand side of the green underneath the new chain link fence. And also he is prepared to cut down the bamboo down as far as it will go. So in other words, cut it right back to the ground. But he's also aware of the fact that it'll spring up again fairly quickly, I guess. I think what he's suggesting is that if somebody would like to meet him at the green at some point, they can go through perhaps some of the issues that we have concerns over, because we may need to add something into the contract if it's not being covered at the moment. Most of what John has raised is part of the contract. So
that's an interesting point, Owen, because I spoke to Jason this afternoon, and first of all, he'd cut the grass outside the toilet block, John. So that has now been done. He did say that strimming underneath the new chain link fence on the left was part of his contract anyway, and that he was going to do it. But he did say that he would spray it with something like Roundup if was necessary. If there was anything more strong that we were required to be used, then he did know someone who had a proper certificate who was capable of doing it. But it was part of his work contract. And preempting the flower beds at the front of the village, he does say that in his contract there is allowance for 8 strims a year around these flower beds. Yeah. I'm not sure whether we visit it when it hasn't been done by chance, but I think if you want more, then you've got to ask Jason to increase his prices. But he does have 8 allowances in his contract for the flower beds. So I'm not sure what you want to do about that, John. Owen?
I have asked Jason if when he next does the flower beds on the entrances to the village, if he could just text me to let me know he's done it.
Sure.
And then it's up to anybody then to go down and have a look and see what he's done down there. So if you're happy with that, I'll certainly notify you when he's next due to do it.
Okay. Any other comments on green car park and toilet block? Bob, you're on mute.
I'm here. All it was, Chairman, was a couple of things. One was in reference to the bamboo, Mr. Slocum actually, when I was out doing the Brent Knoll News, asked me to come and have a look into his garden. He has actually dug out the bamboo on his side, but obviously it's still under the ground and coming up to us. Also, he mentioned that there's an acacia tree, which is the one that we had a bough removed off that was coming onto the green last year. There's a large bough of that is now hanging over his garden, and he wondered if we could maybe have a look at that at some point. And if we were minded to potentially remove that tree, he would be prepared potentially to contribute towards the cost. But I think that's something that members need to have a look at and us consider at a future meeting. But at least they can have a look at that. The other thing I was also going to mention, I did report to Owen, it would be about a week, 10 days ago, that when I went down to the green, that there had obviously been some people having some drinks on there. Unfortunately, they decided to smash bottles. One was at the end of the footpath near the picnic table. One was by the seesaw. One was on the safer surface of the play equipment, and there was a smashed vodka bottle on the climbing unit. So I spent the best part of, I guess, about 45 minutes picking up shards of glass, and hopefully I picked up almost all of it. All I could see was picked up. But it's something I think whoever's on duty this time needs to try and regularly keep an eye on it. Hopefully it's a one-off, but it obviously wasn't accidental, because, as I say, it was in 4 separate areas that these bottles had been completely smashed. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. And one final thing, if I could raise, I've been approached that obviously we don't know what's going to happen with lockdown in terms of the approach of VJ Day. But there was the parish hall's been approached to see if we would be prepared to make tables and chairs available if people are allowed to have some sort of get together. And the question was asked to me whether the parish council potentially would be allowing maybe people to be socially distant on the village green should that event go ahead. But it was just really to raise it at this point, because obviously that's going to come round while we're in recess over August.
Nigel. No, Nigel.
Hi, just on Bob's point there with regards to sort of like making sure we check certain items like the play area. Maybe we should implement a simple checklist for the checking of the green, checking of the toilets, and checking of the telephone box, just so that sort of like we put questions on the checklist that people are checking those critical items. I'm happy to put something together for the council to review.
Did you see my spreadsheet I sent through about 2 weeks ago? Because somebody queried the fact that although we have the book, which obviously checks what's going on the green, there's not really a decent paper trail for some of this stuff. Yeah. I used to keep a sort of an A4 sheet with the sort of tick list.
I thought we used to have one, didn't we?
Well, we used to, and then it was suggested that the book would do the same job. The trouble is, of course, is that the book is perhaps a little bit more informal, whereas what I was proposing was something a bit more formal to actually put on record. I'll send you again, Nigel. You might have missed it. I'll send you again what I've done. Yeah. If you could put any comments on there that you think you could add to that, yeah. Give your view of it, and then between us we can get something together. I think that might be the best thing.
Yeah, good idea.
In terms of next month, it's actually got vacancy against the rota, because of course it was Mr. David Sturgis's month. So of course I don't know whether Andy, might be prepared to go with somebody else and have a go.
I'd be quite happy to go with.
Would that work for you?
That's fine for me. Yes, good. Brian, that'd be superb. Thank you.
All right, that's fine. So we'll put you down for that then. Lovely. Okay.
Okay. GB Sports.
Haven't seen anything. I haven't seen a report from them for a while now. Actually, I must check this out with them actually, because we're still paying them. So okay. I ought to just check that they are in fact still checking it once a week, once a month.
Okay.
I have to follow that through.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. The SID Bob, myself, and Richard had a session with Sid last Wednesday, wasn't it, Bob? We recited it, and we did get it working quite well, but we had various issues. One of them is the battery life, and vehicles coming through which weren't detected. So I've gone back to Mac Holmes, and I spoke to him today. Well, no, that's right. I spoke to him today and exchanged emails with him. We've got a few further tests to do, which I've asked Richard to recharge the batteries, and we'll go down and do a bit more testing. If it's still problematic, then I've told him that we'll be sending it back, or we want his representative down here to go through it. But, you know, we're doing our best. It was much better when we recited it to in accordance with his instructions. I don't think it was quite recited cited properly, and when it works really well. So we must persevere until or go through everything until we're satisfied it's no good. So that's what we're doing. So have you got any questions of me or Bob associated with that? But we just persevere with it for the time being. Okay. Correspondence, Owen, anything?
There is no correspondence other than that which I sent by email, so
okay.
Nothing to report on that front.
Okay. Finance, approved payments.
Just one thing on finance. Obviously, we've been using delegated powers for the last couple of months. I think now we've got ourselves pretty well set on a Zoom format now, which seems to be working. I think from the September meeting, which is the next main meeting, I think we'll bring, if you're happy with that, bring payments back onto the agenda for formal voting and resolutions. If you remember rightly, when we first went over to do delegated powers on finance, we hadn't really got to the Zoom status. We just thought it was just going to be, you know, sort of very informal meetings by email. Actually, it has worked very well for us, actually, I think, the Zoom setup. So we can now bring the finance back onto the September agenda and make it a formal item for any discussions, if you're happy to do that.
Yeah.
Which I would prefer. You know, you as a council should really get a chance to question any of the payments we're making. And I think that's right and proper that should be.
Is there anything in the Unity Bank that needs authorising at the moment?
There will be tomorrow. I've not made the payments until July, so there will be 3 or 4 payments to be made tomorrow. The direct debit payments are working very well. The Sedgemoor arrangement with Clark's salary is working well. So yeah, it's all running pretty smoothly on the finance at the moment.
Thank you, Owen. Okay, matters of consideration 10. Bob, I think we've dealt with unitary response from the parish council, haven't we, really?
Yeah, we have really.
Yeah.
Unless we want to make a collective response to it. I'm not sure whether that's encouraged. I'm not quite sure, Bob. What is the situation there?
I mean, the state of play at the moment is the county are in effect asking for feedback, so that when they make their case to government, should they wish to go ahead, that they've got evidence either that there is support or not support. So there will be further consultation that will come out once the bid has actually been put in. At the moment, this is sort of preemptory dealing with the parishes to see if people are supportive or not in general.
Okay. Okay.
Right, okay. Bodies Lane footpath, well, David and I need to discuss that. Brian and I went on dog bin sighting duty. Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
No, we had a look at a few sites, but the favourite one was down the lane by the side of Faith Evans' house, opposite the tennis courts. and there's a fence there that we can put one on. And I did look at others, like at the side of the gents' toilets, which I thought was quite appropriate, but Colin preferred the one down the lane, didn't you? On the right.
It would be, yeah, I think it would be better.
It's where people walk dogs anyway down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we thought that would be a good place.
Yeah, when it's emptied, the guy will just have to park across the drive and walk down a few yards.
20 yards, isn't it?
Yeah. It's out of the way. It's directly as you either enter the footpath with your dog or when you exit, so they can't miss it. It just seems a logical place to put it, but obviously I'm not sure how neighbours will, whether they'll appreciate that, but that was, we thought, the best place. There's very little area on the tennis club side. You know, if it's got to be a metre in from the road, you can't do that. There's no space. So that was the only place we thought was viable. I don't know if people, when they walk through the village, would like to check whether they're happy with that, but that is our considered place, to be honest with you.
It's well away from Faith's garden, and it's also hidden by a big fence which is all overgrown on the Gough side.
Yeah. So can I ask members of the council whether they could just check whether they're happy with that, please, and then we can make a decision at our... Yes, Nigel.
Just a question for David, really, on that front. If we're thinking of siting it down that, I suppose, route, is that going to cause a problem for any vehicles, like, I don't know, farming vehicles that may go down there, or do they go down there? Are they likely to hit that, do you think?
There's quite a bit of space on the right. So.
Okay. Yeah,
the right-hand side's pretty sensible down there, but you wouldn't want to put it on the left-hand side.
No. So it's not a bad site, but if councillors could have a look. Bob?
Can I just ask, have we decided which type of bin we're looking at? Because obviously there's quite a big financial difference between... They seem to have now gone that the frequency of collection is the same for the rubbish bin as it is for the dog bin. Obviously the dog bin, you have a lid that closes down, but in terms of ongoing cost, we'll have to pick up the cost of the collection if we have the dog bin, whereas if it's a rubbish bin, then potentially we don't have that same level of cost.
Would the normal bin though be sealed like a dog bin is? No, so I think we should go for the dog bin, to be honest, because it's sealed, and you're only going to get smells if you have an open bin, aren't you? Which would annoy, I would think, either. Well, yeah, I don't think that would be right. That's a personal point of view. But if councillors would look at it, ready for our next meeting, then we'll decide what we're going to do. But I think a closed dog bin is the answer there, Bob. Okay. Software update, Owen.
Yeah, I've been looking at various, as you know, earlier in the year, I said to you that basically Excel spreadsheets were not really doing the right job for the council now. We've kind of moved on from that. I've been looking at a couple of other options that don't cost the council too much money in terms of ongoing cost. One of those I've come up with is something called Scribe Accounting. This is used by quite a number of parishes in our area, and I've had a demonstration from them, and it looks very effective and very much the sort of software we'd be looking for. The one good thing about it is it's specifically designed for parish councils, so therefore it picks up all the elements of council finance that we need it to. So I'm going to continue to evaluate that through the next sort of period of 6 weeks until we get to the next meeting, and then perhaps, you know, I'll put a proposal to the council in terms of cost. It's probably going to cost us somewhere region about £250 to set up with an annual license fee. That's a sort of ballpark figure, but I think it's absolutely critical that I assess the value of it first of all to make sure it does what we want it to do. And if it does, then I'll put the proposal to the council in September, and use it for I'll go back to the beginning of this year's accounts and redo the accounts on Scribe software. It'd take a couple of hours. That's all to do that. So,
Okay.
so just for information more than anything else.
Thank you, Owen. We had the next item. We had the residents querying the safety of a telegraph pole because a tree was growing up out of the roots of this telegraph pole, and ivy was all over it. It was in a right state. Have you been able to register this at all, Owen?
I've registered it with Southwest Utilities.
Okay.
I'm waiting for them to come back to me. I have a number, and so, but as I say, I haven't heard a word yet from them. I'm not surprised because they all take a long time. But I did mention to yes. I'm not even sure it's their responsibility actually.
Okay.
Where is it situated?
It's you know where Chris oh dear, what was his name? It's almost opposite no. It's in Church Lane, opposite the Glebe Field, roughly. It's the cottage that was built sideways to the road. I think it's called the Old Stables, I think, something like that. Is that right, Bob?
Thank you.
Yeah, but the telegraph pole is totally overgrown and is in a real bad state. And they just said, could we do anything about it? So Owen very kindly has registered it, and we'll see what happens.
I think